Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk specifically about arithmetic, sequence, and series. Now, for arithmetic, it means we're going to get to it by arithmetic, which means we're going to be adding. So if I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, comma, dot, 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 that's a sequence. 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8 plus 10 plus dot, 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 dot. That's a series. Now, obviously, to get from one to the other, the thing that makes it arithmetic is the fact that we're adding. In this case, we're adding 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. On and on and on to either a specified term for a partial sum or infinity forever. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to write both an explicit and a recursive formula for an arithmetic series. Now, the recursive formula is very, very easy because all you're doing is adding 2. So I take any term and I add 2 to it, I get the next term. So in this case, it's adding 2. Now, if I were to generalize that, it's going to be a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus d. D is a common difference. Now you say, well, how in the world do I figure out what the difference is? Well, you can take any two numbers you want. In that case, we'll take 8 and 6, and we'll take the larger minus the smaller. Now, I say larger minus the smaller. What I mean is the larger term minus the smaller term, because in this case, 8 minus 6 is 2. But if I have something like this, if I have 10, 7, 4, 1, in this case, we can figure out very quickly that it's minus 3. But if you didn't know or you weren't sure, all you had to do to find the difference was take the bigger term, which means 7, it's the next term in line, minus the previous term. 7 minus 10 is negative 3, so your difference equals negative 3. So all you have to do to find, say, the 12th term is work up your way from term 1 to term 12, term 1 to term 12, wherever that happens to be. Now, that becomes kind of a problem if I want to go to the 32nd term. So that's why we, of course, need the explicit formula. The explicit formula. Well, to get to the second term, I added 2 once. To get to the third term, I added 2 twice. To get to the fourth term, I added 2 3 times. To get to the fifth term, I added 2 4 times. So you'll notice I'm adding one less time than the term. Well, that makes it easy. If I wanted, say, the 12th term here, I'm going to start with 2 as my original number, and I'm going to be having a difference of 2, but I'm not, to get to the 12th term, I'm going to need to add it 11 times. So in this case, our 12th term would be 24, which should make sense because they're all multiples of 2. So with that, we can generalize a formula. Whereas this is the recursive form, the explicit form that allows us to find any term straight up is going to be a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus d. I'm sorry, that's the recursive. It's going to be a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. There we go. So a sub 1, n minus 1 times d, whatever it happens to be. So I can find whatever term. Whoa, move the keyboard, move the camera, whole 9 yards. So I can find any given term. So we'll take a look at an example of that. Let's say we have a sub 1 equals 7, and we have a d of negative 3. And I want the a sub 14th term. Well, to get the a sub 14th term, I'm going to take a sub 1, and then I'm going to add n minus 1 times d, so I say 7 plus. Since I want the 14th term, 14 minus 1 times the difference of negative 3. Work all that out. I'm going to come up with 13 times negative 3 is negative 39. 7 minus 39 is negative 32. So it seems to work out very nicely. That is finding the difference using both explicit and recursive forms. Now, that brings us to our sums. If I wanted to find the sum of a series, that means it's going to be, in our case, if I take this series here, 7 plus negative 3, so I get 4, then I get 1, then I get negative 2, then I get ... all the way till I get to negative 32. If I wanted to add these up, well, I can add each piece individually, or I could just find a way to add them all up together. The formula for adding them all up together is as follows. S sub n, which is the sum of n terms, is n minus 2 times a sub 1 plus a sub n. Now, that's a fairly easy thing to do in this case because I say I have the 14th term, so I'm going to take the 14th sum equals 14 over 2, parenthesis, the first term was 7, the last term was negative 32, put all that together, I should have the sum of the whole 9 yards. So in this case, we're going to take 7 minus 32, negative 25. We're going to multiply it by 7. That equals negative 175. Now, let me give you an idea of where this comes from. Really what you're doing is, you're simply saying, could I write this as a sub 1 plus a sub n divided by 2. Well, that's nothing but the average of the first and the last term. Well, since all we're doing is adding one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other, half of these terms are going to be below average, half of them are going to be above average by the same amount. So if I simply take the average of the first and the last terms, and I multiply that average together by however many terms that I have, that means I have average, 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 put it all together that many times, it's going to equal the same as if I added every individual term together. So this formula is really just the average of the first and the last times however many terms there are. Now, the problem is, if you don't know the last term, you're kind of stuck, unless we steal this formula from up here. If I know that this equals a sub n, then I could say s sub n equals n over 2, parenthesis, a sub 1 plus, and replace a sub n by its formula. Its formula is a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Now I don't have to even know what that term is. I could simply say I want 14 of them, divided by 2, 7 plus, I need 14 of them, minus 1, and the difference is negative 3. So that allows me to find the same value using any one of 3 formulas. Now, using those 3 formulas, you should be able to get any and all of the problems available. Now, there is one other thing that you might want to think about, and that is, what if you're given a sub n? I have no idea what this is. A sub n equals, let's go 12, and let's make it the 5th term. So a sub 5 equals 12, a sub 1 equals 2. I don't know what the difference is. So if I wanted to find the difference, I'd simply take my formula, a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. and I would plug in what I know. 12 equals a sub 1, which is 2, plus, it's the fifth term that I have, so 5 minus 1, parenthesis, times d. So I have 12 equals 2 plus 4d. Well, at this point, all I have to do is solve for d. And so I have 10 equals 4d, d equals 10/4 or 2.5. Now, this is just one example of how you may have to use any of these formulas in reverse by taking what you know and finding what you don't. So with that, here is your homework. There you go. There is your homework. Make sure you do all of those. Make sure you answer the quiz questions and get back to it. Bring it all to class the following day. Thank you.